All right, welcome to Mr. Snow's biology class. Here we go with my first ever screencast. Definitely don't share it with anyone. It's probably going to be terrible. All right, so here we have the goal. I'm going to show you how to make this. I'm about to make it disappear, but let's start with the objective. I want you to make two graphs. Both will be scatter plots with a trend line. One of them will be the class average data. Actually, we're going to pool both of our classes together. And one of them will be your own particular lab group, like so. All right, so here we go. I'm going to delete this. And I'm also going to delete the averages. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to I should have just cleared the entire row, but whatever. Alright, so, ready? Here's how we're going to make the averages. No calculator needed. I'm going to click and drag. Notice I didn't use the X value. I just want all the Y values. So I'm going to click and drag down to here, and then I'm going to put insert function, average, and it's going to give me the average. I'll just hit return, and that's the average of all of this, including air and bag, which I don't know how they calculate that, but I guess they assume that's 0. So now, look at this nifty trick. That you probably knew how to do that, but here's a pro tip right here. Go down to the bottom right corner. Watch how my arrow turned into a cross, and now I'm going to click and drag and blow your freaking mind. Whoa! I just said, you know what you did with that column? Do it for these other columns. And it's like, sure, I'm a computer. I'll do whatever you tell me to. And it did it. So there we go. Until they tell me what to do. And then we're all in trouble. But that's a different screencast. All right. So now I want to highlight my X values and my Y values. Do you see my X values at the top here? Percent sucrose. All right. So I'm gonna highlight. I'm not gonna do unknown. All right, because that's not a value for it to graph. I'll show you what to do with the unknown once we have the equation. You just plug it in the y equals mx plus p and you solve for x. But we'll get to that. So I highlighted the x values, and now I'm going to highlight the y values. So let's say I'm Alex, or someone in Alex's group. I'm going to highlight those as well, but do you know that you have to hold down the command click so that it keeps this highlighted row? What is it on a PC? Control? Yeah. Alright, so on a PC it's control, on a Mac it's command. Now I have both of those highlighted and not the stuff in between. Shift would do all the stuff in between as well. Alright, I got my X's and my Y's. Now I want to tell it to graph. So I'm going to go to Inserts, and they call a graph a chart. So that's what we want. It's got a little picture of a graph there. Alright, so insert chart, and voila. No, that's not what I want. So I have to mess around with it a little bit. I don't want a column chart. I want a scatter plot. So I'm going to scroll down till I see scatter plot. Now I've got my scatter plot. Let's take a look. Does that generally look like the right X and Y values? Here are my X's. 0%, 5, 10, 15, 20, yep. Because sometimes it just looks weird, and then you have to scroll down and like kind of play with these things. In case that happens, just like try switch row. Like if it looks like that, and you're like, what? Just like play around with that. Switch rows, columns, use row 1 as labels. Like do that until it looks right. Sometimes it gets it on the first one, sometimes for whatever reason it doesn't. Alright, so that looks good. Now all I have to do is put in a trend line and maybe change the title. Definitely change that y-axis value. That's not a good label there. But let me show you also how to add another graph, or add another series to the same graph. So I want to superimpose another scatter plot on here so I can put both trend lines. Remember I had the red one and the blue one right next to each other. So now I'm going to go back to the data. I'm going to put add series, right? Because I've got an X value, I've got a Y value, but now I want another Y value. So I click on add series, and now it's saying what data? And now I can just highlight the data of these class averages, not the unknown, but the rest of them, and it will add that series as well. You see how now it's in red? I highlighted the term class average too because I knew that would automatically be included in the legend, which just saved me a little bit of time, but you don't have to do that. You could just do the numbers. Alright, so now I'm ready to go to customize. So go to customize over here on the right. Click on that. This is where we can do the title. So this is where I can change it to osmosis data 2018. And I can change the other titles as well. Click on here. I can go to horizontal looks good, percent sucrose. I might change that to percent sucrose solution, but definitely want to change the vertical axis to percent change in mass. That's my Y value. All right. Now I want to put in the click on series, and this is going to add my trend line. So again, I clicked on series, and now I go down to trend line, and it added it for both of them, and it color coded it, which is nice. And if you wanted to change it, like if you were printing it or something, which I guess for this one we're not, but you could also change the thickness of one of them so that you can tell the difference if you can't tell the difference in colors, and you can apply it to one or both of them. Right now we'll just do both. Alright, so I got my trend line. What I also want is the equation. So under trend line you'll see label, which isn't super helpful, but if you look there on choices for label you can see use equation. Boom, now I got the y equals mx plus b formatted equation for both of my lines, which is fantastic because now I can find the unknown, right, by algebraically solving for it. So now I plug in my y because you do know what the change in mass is for the unknown, you just don't know what the percent sucrose solution is of that particular bag. So I plug in my y and solve for x, and I want you to do that for both of the I wrote it on the instructions. I want you to do that on Schoology. I want you to do that for both of your graphs to see just generally how they compare. Are these graphs generally what we're looking for? Should they increase? Should the mass increase as the percent sucrose solution in the bag increases? Yes. Data looked a little scary, I'll be honest. But the power of averages. Look at that blue. Look at that. No, sorry. What's the red? Look at that red. I do the average. Actually, the blue. This particular group is good, but some of them don't look so good. This particular group looks good as well, but you'll find that the class average for both classes looks quite nice. And that is it. We're done.